I thought I was hallucinating when I saw smoke curling from the chimney. The cabin I'd bought, my escape project, was supposed to be abandoned. Yet someone was grilling out back like they owned the deed. Then an HOA woman marched in with folders like a deputy clerk, telling me I had 5 minutes to leave her property. 6 months earlier, I'd made what I thought was the smartest buy of my life. My name is Evan Parker. I'm 35, a software engineer in Seattle, and after a divorce I needed something that was mine. The listing showed a tired cedar 2-story, 3 hours north, perfect for weekend rehab and quiet. I closed fast, trusting the inspection and a line in the contract about existing arrangements my agent waved off as boilerplate. Work swallowed my weekends. When October finally freed me, I drove up breathing pine and cold air, until the house came into view. Fresh stain on the siding. New hardware. Flower boxes. An SUV under a rebuilt carport. Laughing voices and the smell of burgers drifted from the yard. A young guy flipped patties. A golden retriever bounded over. A poised woman in athleisure stood and iced me with a practiced smile. I'm Marilyn Foster, she announced. I manage this property under Summit Ridge Estates HOA authority. You need to leave. When I said I'd closed 3 months ago, she barely glanced at my deed. Those papers mean nothing until verified, she said, telling Tyler Foster to call the sheriff. She had a fat folder by the door, a camera pointed at the driveway, and neighbors nodding like this was normal. I left, shaking, furious, and drove the switchbacks back to Seattle. By morning, fury had hardened into focus. I pulled the HOA charter, pages of protective management clauses. A glossy site with Marilyn's bio, and enforcement language that let the board temporarily manage homes. My agent dodged my calls. Records showed Marilyn had served on a dissolved board in Cedar Falls tied to financial irregularities. Her lifestyle didn't match her reported income. In county files I saw home values spike after management intervention. A pattern. I hired attorney Grant Whitaker, a mountain country litigator with a Victorian office and a file cabinet full of HOA wars. He slid out a folder from a past case, language nearly identical to Marilyn's letters. She isn't forging, he said. She stretches gray areas until owners give up. He mentioned a name in that file, Michael Tan, and within a day we tracked him to Portland. I kept everything. Michael told me. Letters, emails, assessment logs. If you're serious, I'll stand with you. We built a plan. Grant would handle filings, I'd document. I set trail cams, scraped HOA emails. And combed Tyler's public socials. His geotagged photos placed him living inside multiple, managed, homes, like one belonging to Eleanor Price, an elderly owner now in assisted living. The timestamps matched HOA interventions. With Michael's paper trail and Tyler's selfies, we took the package to Detective Aaron Blake at the county. You didn't bring me a complaint, she said after an hour of cross-checking. You brought me an operation. Before warrants, Grant and I made a controlled visit. Marilyn met us in pressed slacks, control radiating off her posture. We stepped into a staged magazine interior, designer furniture, curated art, fresh granite. Everything I've done complies with Summit Ridge bylaws, she said. Grant set down our folder. There's no clause granting seizure power. Your liens were never recorded. And we have a prior victim, Michael Tan, whose file mirrors this. A crack flickered across Marilyn's face, then vanished. Amendments passed 2 years ago, she said smoothly, sliding out vague updates. When Grant warned we'd file with the DA and state regulators for unlawful detainer and fraud, she exploded. Get out, or I'll have you arrested. As we left, Tyler looked like he wanted to speak, then stared at the floor. The next morning, Michael's boxes hit Grant's desk, subpoenaed bank statements showing HOA checks diverted to Marilyn's personal account, special assessments, matching deposits, and a list of at least 3 other managed homes. I traced Marilyn's fronts, Mountain Property Solutions, Summit Ridge Management Services, shells to slap official-sounding logos on letters. And I pulled archived HOA emails Marilyn sent to contractors about our properties, complete with addresses matching every takeover. This wasn't an overzealous president, it was an illegal property grab business. Detective Blake moved. Warrants hit Marilyn's house while she sat in a board session. The hall was staggering, cabinets of templated letters, fake resolutions, and a handwritten notebook titled Acquisition Protocol, a step-by-step playbook, target remote or distracted owners. Fabricate violations, file sham assessments, assume management, with occupancy and cosmetic upgrades, stall with verification until they quit. My name was in her notes. She'd even charted my divorce timeline and work hours. We needed one more piece. Detective Blake brought Tyler in, no mother, just evidence. You're 24, she told him. Help us and you can start over. Or ride this into federal conspiracy time. When she laid out the bank deposits, geotags, and HOA siphons, his hands shook. He broke. Mom said these were vacation places rich people forgot. We were helping the neighborhood, he cried. Then he admitted forging documents, setting up utilities, and intimidating owners. He confirmed $24,000 diverted from HOA funds to keep managed houses looking legit. As Tyler talked, officers arrested Marilyn at her lawyer's office. She claimed she was assisting a federal probe, then called herself a persecuted volunteer. The recordings on Tyler's phone wrecked that story, Marilyn on the line with contractors describing how she'd talked another city buyer into walking and how they'd flip the house after a year of management. News hit Summit Ridge Estates like a storm. At a Saturday meeting in the school gym, Detective Blake and ADA Lauren Pierce took the mic. 18 properties across 3 counties had been targeted, $68,000 in HOA dues siphoned. Eleanor Price asked how many had lost homes they didn't even know they'd lost. Faces crumpled. I spoke where Marilyn once branded me a trespasser. 6 months ago. I thought I bought a fixer, I said. Instead, I walked into a criminal enterprise. Michael Tan flew down to tell the room how stress wrecked his health and marriage. Then longtime residents stood to apologize. We let order blind us, said Robert Hale. The crowd voted through reforms, independent audits, board term limits, due process for enforcement. 3 weeks later, Marilyn shuffled into arraignment in an orange jumpsuit. Civil suits stacked up, criminal counts mounted. Her attorney tried spin, the FAA dry tone of ADA Pierce cut through, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, grand theft. Under a plea deal, Marilyn Foster took 18 years in state prison and more than $700,000 in restitution. Tyler Foster, who cooperated fully, got 6 months in county probation and a restitution plan, both to victims and the HOA he helped gut. I finally exhaled. The cabin was legally, finally mine. Ironically, Marilyn's upgrades boosted the value, new appliances, stonework, landscaping, paid with stolen money. I kept what I could live with, repainted what I couldn't, and made it mine. The new Summit Ridge Estates board delivered the reforms it promised. Michael and I launched a small nonprofit, the Property Rights Education Fund, with money seized from Marilyn's accounts, teaching communities how to audit HOAs and spot red flags. Months later, Tyler asked to meet. He looked smaller, older. I can't undo it, he said, sliding me a letter, but I'm trying to make it right. I believed he meant it. Not forgiveness exactly, but the first step toward it. That summer I hosted a Summit Ridge Unity barbecue. Eleanor Price brought cookies and stories of the old days. Kids splashed where intimidation once ruled. Detective Blake, now a sergeant, leading a regional HOA fraud task force, told the crowd the surest antidote to abuse was transparency and neighbors who actually talked to each other. One last letter came a year later, from Marilyn. No apology, just grievances and a claim she was a victim of politics. I set it down and looked out at the pines, at my porch light glowing warm instead of watchful. Some people never take responsibility. That wasn't my problem anymore. Here's what mattered: the house was quiet, the community was cleaner, other towns were adopting audits and appeal rights, and the woman who tried to erase my deed would never hurt anyone else again. I came here for a fixer. I found a fight. We won it the only way that lasts, by gathering proof, standing our ground, and refusing to be isolated. If you ever face a paper bully in a nice blazer, remember this: you don't need to shout. You need documents, allies, and time. Arrogance sprints. Accountability finishes. I locked my door. Not against my neighbors but for my peace, and watched smoke rise from my own chimney at last.